Welcome back. Today I'm talking about eating an anti-inflammatory diet, but mainly, what does that mean? Have you heard of an anti-inflammatory diet? I've heard people say paleo, AIP, the Walls protocol, just to name a few, and that they all help with inflammation. So what are they and why do they help? So these diets could help with inflammation, and they all have commonalities that I'll talk about. Some of the most common ones in these are that they have limiting sugar, dairy, and grains. A true anti-inflammatory diet, like the Walls diet, has you remove all processed foods, limits how much grains, legumes, and meat you can have. It requires you to remove all dairy, sugar, and fake sugar from your diet as well. I've heard many people get good relief from eating an anti-inflammatory diet, but they can be so strict and rigid, and it just makes it hard to follow them. And if you don't stick with it, you'll have some relief for a period of time, but it will only last so long. In general, I recommend eating a balanced diet of mainly fruits, vegetables, small amounts of protein and grains, and limiting sugar, dairy, gluten products, and fried foods should only be occasional. If you have a food allergy, you definitely need to not eat that food. Depending on how intense the allergy is, you could go into anaphylactic shock, but you could also just get a rash or symptoms on the inside, an upset tummy. If I had a food allergy that wasn't as severe as anaphylactic shock, but I got a rash or GI symptoms like bloating, constipation, diarrhea every time I ate, my body's going to have that reaction and inflammation will build up. Inflammation builds up because your body senses an illness or injury is present, so the inflammatory process occurs. The inflammatory process is normal. It's there to help you heal. But if I never take away that inciting factor, like an irritating food, then I'm going to be in constant inflammation. Some foods that are inflammatory include certain grains, like those that contain gluten, wheat, barley, rye. Dairy and sugar also create inflammation. For someone who has celiac disease, a wheat allergy, or gluten intolerance are three examples of someone who needs to follow a gluten-free diet. Dairy and sugar can cause inflammation because of the digestive process. Dairy has lactose, which is a specific type of sugar only found in dairy. When sugar is digested and broken down, the body will use what it needs for energy, and then the rest is stored. The liver can convert these into fatty acids, and then the body starts a reaction from the presence of these fatty acids that initiates the inflammatory process. So how do we avoid all of this inflammation? One of the ways is to limit the amount of these types of food that we eat. Going gluten-free isn't necessarily a healthier lifestyle. A Snickers bar is gluten-free. Is that going to be your first choice for healthy food options? But if someone has celiac disease, wheat allergies, or gluten intolerance, then limiting and eliminating foods that contain gluten are necessary. Limiting dairy and sugar intake can reduce inflammation by limiting the amount of sugar that's left over in the body after the body does its normal thing in the digestive process with sugar. My husband and I follow what I call a modified paleo diet. We still eat legumes and some grains like rice and corn. We find that our bodies tolerate those just fine, so we keep them in the mix. We do follow gluten-free and refined sugar-free and some dairy-free. We've found that we can actually tolerate, and really it's my husband, that he can tolerate dairy as long as it's dairy that doesn't have potato starch added to it, which prevents caking. So some of those cheese mixtures have potato starch in them. Anyway, so how do we do all of this? Do we eat just lettuce all the time, bland foods? Nope. We had Indian food the other day. We have tacos every week. And the other day I made Chinese food, beef and broccoli. So you can find healthy, tasty foods so that you aren't just eating lettuce and carrots, eating like a rabbit. The best thing that I did was I found Danielle Walker's cookbooks. I highly, highly recommend them for anybody who's looking for a gluten-free, modified paleo diet, specific carb diet, things like that. All right, that's all for now. For more tips and tricks to get rid of your knee pain, subscribe to my channel.